For the next few slides, I will be discussing award adjustments for COPS grants. The Office of Community and Oriented Policing Services, COPS Office, has developed the COPS Agency Portal to streamline grant management functions. The new system will allow for more easily monitored processes and better electronic record keeping. The Agency Portal Grants Management User Manual contains step-by-step guidelines for the following: new user setup, e-signature setup, grant modifications, grant withdrawals, and grant extensions that will be available on our COPS office website with the address listed on the next slide. A grant award modification is when the user submits a request to make changes to the approved COPS award. The grant modification request workflow in the COPS Agency Portal consists of the following steps: generates a series of modification forms for the user based on the current contents of the award, allows the user to fill out the modification forms, accepts the completed forms from the user and stores the modification data in the database, submits modification details to the COPS office for internal processing, receives an approval or denial notification from the COPS office, receives a modified award document from the COPS office, if applicable, reflecting the modifications, receives a modified financial clearance memo from the COPS office. Requesting grant extensions. A grant extension is when the user submits a request to extend the date of the grant award period. The grant extension request workflow in the COPS Agency Portal consists of the following steps: generates an extension form for the user based on the current period of performance of the award, allows the user to fill out the extension form, accepts the completed form from the user and stores the extension data in the database, submits extension details to the COPS office for internal processing, receives an approval or denial notification from the COPS office. Requesting grant withdrawals. A grant withdrawal is when the user submits a request to terminate the award. The grant withdrawal request workflow in the COPS Agency Portal consists of the following steps: generates a withdrawal form for the user, allows the user to complete the withdrawal form, accepts the completed form from the user and stores the withdrawal data in the database, submits withdrawal details to the COPS office for internal processing, notifies the user of the completion of the withdrawal process.
All recipients will be responsible for ensuring their award and DOJ component-specific reporting requirements are met. The first report listed here is the SF-425, or the Federal Financial Report. OVW and OJP recipients use GMS to submit this report, and COPS recipients use the COPS Agency Portal for the submission of this report. The next common report is the Progress Report, which is used to report on the award from a programmatic perspective. It is important to note that each component and program has a different appearance for this report, so always make sure that you are using the correct report for that award and the reporting period when submitting. OVW and OJP recipients use GMS for this report, and COPS recipients use the COPS Agency Portal for the submission of this report. The last two reports may be required by your component and program, so make sure to check with your program solicitation and award special conditions to see what additional reporting requirements apply to your award. We briefly discussed where to report the Federal Financial Report, so let's discuss the report in more detail. The Federal Financial Report is also called the SF-425, so you'll hear it referred to by both names. This is a quarterly report that is required by your awarding agency and captures the recipient expenditures by quarter for each award. The previous version of this form was called the SF-269, so if you're familiar with that form, just know that the SF-425 is the newer version of this, and the SF-269 was phased out a few years ago. We also have here the link to GMS for OVW and OJP recipients to submit the reports. Each financial report is due no later than 30 days after the end of the quarter. If the report is late, then the system will place an automatic hold on funds, so it's important to remain compliant with this requirement. Also listed here is the COPS website for recipients to submit their financial reports. First, we'll go through how to submit the report in GMS for OVW and OJP recipients, and then Bill will follow up with a demonstration for COPS recipients. So here we have the main login page for GMS. Click on the GMS sign-in link to log into the system. That link will take you to the next page where you enter your login user ID and password and click Sign In. This screen here is your GMS homepage. Identify the award that you want to report on, and under the heading Action, click on the link for Financial Status Report. You will be directed to the report that is currently due for this award. For the first 9 sections of the report, you'll only need to enter information for line 5, and so this is optional. If your organization refers to this award by a different reference code, you can enter that here. It can also be left blank. The rest of the lines are populated with your award-specific information. Take note of the question mark at the top left of the grade screen of this report, right under the report number. When you click on it, you'll receive a pop-up with additional information. This pop-up has instructions for each line of the report. If at any time you're not sure about one of the fields that you fill out, you can click on the question mark for additional guidance. Box 10 is where you will find the meat of what you enter in this report. The first few lines, A through C, are not captured on this report, so you want to skip down to line D. This is where you'll find the total amount of your award under Total Federal Funds Authorized. Right below that, for line E, there are 3 figures. The first figure in this example is $2,000, and it's found in the column under Previously Reported. This figure is auto-populated from the previously submitted report and captures the total cumulative amount expended prior to this report. Under the column This Period for line E is where you will enter the total expenditures that were incurred for the award during the reported period. And in this example, the amount is $17,000. Then the report will add up the previously reported amount with the expenditures from this period for a total of $19,000 in the cumulative column. The following figure you will enter in line F is only used if you had an unliquidated obligation for this period. In other words, if you had any costs in your accounting records marked as obligations but have not yet been paid, then you can enter that amount here. If not, you can just mark it 0. The next line, line G, is an auto-calculated box and is the sum of lines E and F. So they're adding up the cumulative expenditures with the unliquidated obligations for the total federal share of expenditures for this period. And last, in this section, is line H, which is another auto-calculated figure which subtracts line G, the total federal share, from line D, the total amount awarded, to get the total unobligated balance of federal funds, or in other words, the total amount of funds remaining after this period. It is crucial to note that this report does not demonstrate the amount that recipients draw down from their award. We can see that information in our internal accounting records, so we don't ask you to report on that. Rather, what you should report in the 425 are the amounts from your internal accounting records, like from your general ledger, that demonstrates the actual expenditures you incurred for this award. The next couple sections include the reported amounts for recipient share and program income. You should only include these amounts if you have approved match and program income in your award. Under the recipient share, you will enter the total amount required in line I, and in the next line, J, for the recipient share of expenditures, you will enter the amount for this period in the column under this period. The amounts are carried over from the previous period and auto-calculated in the cumulative column, just like the previous section we discussed. And last, the remaining amount is also auto-calculated and will show you how much recipient share to be provided is left. For program income, in line L, you will enter the amount of income earned and then follow it by the amount expended in the subsequent appropriate line. The last line O will auto-calculate the amount of program income remaining to be expended. The last section of the report that you will fill out is for indirect expenses in box 11. This should be used only if you have an indirect cost rate agreement or use the de minimis rate. The first section in box A is where you will select the type of rate that you have approved in your indirect cost rate agreement or the de minimis rate. Next, in box B, enter the actual rate for the approved period, and in box C, the period for which the rate is applicable. All of this information can be obtained from your rate agreement. Next, in box D, you will enter the base to which your rate is charged, and box E will auto-calculate the rate against the base for the total amount charged. The last box you will enter is an F, which is the amount that you are including in the federal portion charged to the award. The last area to enter information that is not required but may be helpful is box 12 at the top of this picture. If you want to add any additional information that you feel is pertinent to this report, you can add it in a narrative format here. Last, you will fill out the filer information and click Submit at the bottom of the report. Once the report is submitted properly, you'll be routed to a confirmation page. So just make sure that you see this at the end to confirm that it was submitted. If your report was submitted late and funds were held as a result of the late submission, it can take up to 3 business days for the hold to be removed. You can contact your awarding agency for any additional questions you have about the report or the hold on funds. We compiled a few helpful tips that we want to share to help out with creating this report properly. First is a reminder that this report captures the actual expenditures incurred by recipients and not the drawdowns from the government. Like I mentioned before, we have that information in our accounting records of how much you have drawn down. What we're looking for with this report is that actual expenditures from your internal accounting records that show how much funds you have expended for this award. Next is to make sure that when you are including the expenditures from your subrecipients, that you are including the amounts actually expended by them as well. Last is to make sure that you are reporting the indirect cost portion correctly and accounting for the correct information related to the indirect cost type, rate, and base. We've provided a helpful chart that demonstrates the reporting periods and their related due dates. If the report is not submitted within that 30-day window, funds will be frozen and may take a few days to unfreeze them. So it's vital to ensure that reporting is performed on time every quarter. Even if you did not expend funds in a quarter, you would report $0 expended. If you have any questions, we have both the OJP and OVW contact information listed here for your convenience. If your question is related to a report for OVW, then you should contact the OVW GFMD Help Desk line and vice versa.
As Suhaila mentioned, I will be discussing the COPS office process for submitting your federal financial report. As stated in 2 CFR Part 200.327, Financial Reporting, the awardees are required to use Federal Financial Report SF-425 to report the status of funds for each grant. The SF-425 reflects actual cumulative federal funds incurred, expenditures, unliquidated obligations, accruals, local matching contributions, recipient share, and the unobligated balance of federal funds. Your financial reports will be submitted on Standard Form SF-425, and the report will track your expenditures on a cumulative basis. That includes the recipient's share as well, if applicable. Upon project award acceptance, awardees are required to submit an SF-425 every quarter for each active award received. Submission of your SF-425 report is a requirement, and it begins as soon as you accept your award, regardless of whether you have begun incurring expenditures. Awardees who do not submit SF-425s by the due date will be considered delinquent and will be unable to draw down funds through the GPRS payment system. If you submit your reports within the 30-day grace period, every quarter, you will not get placed on the delinquent list and your funds will not be frozen. The COPS office has developed the COPS Agency Portal, a web-based system created to streamline grant management functions. The system will allow for more easily monitored processes and better electronic record keeping. Log in and select the SF-425 icon. Visit the COPS Agency Portal to submit and manage all of your reporting requirements. This slide is an image of the SF-425. On this slide, we have an exercise. The exercise explains how you are supposed to submit your reports over the life of the grant. The report is requesting a cumulative total for the federal share and the recipient share of the expenditures incurred from the start date of the award to the end of the current period that you are submitting this report for. You will always need to calculate the amount of expenditures for each quarter, then add those expenditures to the cumulative totals listed on the last report for your last period. The new totals will now be placed in the federal and recipient share boxes for current period. Common errors to avoid when preparing your quarterly SF-425 Federal Financial Report. Reporting current quarter expenses instead of cumulative total. Remember that this report is tracking the cumulative totals for both the federal share and the recipient share of expenditures. Reporting disbursements received instead of actual expenditures incurred. Do not report your drawdowns. You must report your expenditures of allowable actual costs for the period and then request a reimbursement for those funds through GPRS. Reporting the full remaining balance as an accrual. You should only report costs as accruals if you have committed the funds to a vendor but have not paid them by the end of the period. You will then move the accrual to expenditures in the next quarter after you have paid the vendor. Accruals are not eligible for reimbursement, only actual expenditures that are paid for. Not reporting local share. If your award has a local share requirement, you must address that in the SF-425. If you fail to report local share, you may be responsible for returning funds that represent the minimum required recipient share of 25%. Reporting actual salary of rehired officer instead of entry-level salary. Your award funds have been provided to hire an entry-level officer, and that is the source of your funding. If you are allowed to move a veteran officer into the community policing duties as required by the award, you will still have to hire an entry-level officer to backfill the move and report that salary on the SF-425. If you have any problems with your SF-425, please use the resources on the screen for contact. For more detailed instructions, please visit our COPS website to download the following resource, Helpful Hints Guide for Completing the Federal Financial Report.
As a reminder, for programmatic reporting requirements, OVW and OJP recipients will use GMS to report online for their progress reports and performance reports. GMS allows recipients to view all of their information electronically, including reports that are already populated with their organization-specific information. Recipients have the ability to attach additional documents to the report if it is needed, and the system will generate email notifications to remind recipients to submit the reports. Last, the awarding agency grant managers can review the reports and send them back to the filer if they have any questions. And this is all maintained for everyone's ease and convenience within the system. Some additional notes on programmatic reporting are that the requirements are identified in both the conditions of the award document and also in the program solicitation. You should verify these sections to ensure compliance with the requirements. Also, like the financial reports, if the reports are submitted late and past the due date, funds will be held and drawdowns cannot be processed until the report is submitted and current. Another possible consequence of delinquent report submission is that future awards and grant adjustment notices may not be processed, so please make sure your reporting is kept up to date. If recipients have any questions related to GMS during the submission of their reports, they can contact their awarding agency's help desk numbers. And if there are any questions related to the actual report or reporting requirements, they should contact their program manager directly for clarification or guidance.
I will be discussing, over the next few slides, the COPS Office Progress Report procedures. As I mentioned earlier, the COPS Office has developed the COPS Agency Portal, a web-based system created to streamline grant management functions. The system will allow for more easily monitored processes and better electronic record keeping. In order to process and submit your agency's program progress report, please log in and select the Progress Report icon. Quarterly program progress reports and a final program progress closeout report are required to be submitted directly to the COPS office through the COPS Agency Portal website. Once you are logged in, select Applications from the Agency Portal menu, click on the Progress Report icon, and follow the instructions to complete your report. Program progress reports for COPS Office awards must be submitted every quarter and no later than 30 days after the last day of each reporting quarter. These reports will request information about the status of your award in terms of purchasing equipment, hiring personnel, and your award-related community policing activities. The COPS office will notify your agency directly when the report is due. A notification for submitting your quarterly program progress report will be sent electronically in January, April, July, and October, covering activities for the preceding calendar quarter. Notification for submitting your final program progress closeout report will be sent to your agency in the month following your award end date. After your award period has ended, your agency may be sent a final progress or closeout report from the COPS office and asked to complete it. This report will serve as your agency's final programmatic report on the award, and the information your agency provides in this report will be used to make a final assessment of your award progress.